have a younger cousin who attracts stories the way some people attract stray cats. She's not the type who goes looking for haunted places. She's practical, good with numbers, terrible with horror movies. But somehow, the big turning points in her life keep happening in apartments and houses that are not empty. For privacy, I'll change names and places. Let's say she was in a southern port city we'll call a harbour city when this first happened. When she told me these two stories back to back, I realised they weren't separate at all. They're about the same thing. People who are still waiting long after everyone else has moved on.
Part 1. The Student Rental.
My cousin was 19 when she left home for university. Housing around campus was expensive, so she split a rental with two friends, Li and Tian Yu. They found a 2-bedroom apartment in an ageing high-rise a couple of bus stops away from school, in a neighbourhood full of cheap food and scooter noise. The building itself had good bones, but tired skin. The lobby tiles were cracked in a few corners, the elevator shuddered every time it stopped, and the hallways always smelled faintly of cooking oil and incense from someone's little altar near the stairs. They didn't care. They were 19, out of their parents' houses, and the apartment had 3 things that mattered. It was cheap, it had a balcony where you could hang laundry and drink beer, and the landlord didn't ask too many questions. The layout was simple. A small living room with a TV and a sagging second-hand sofa, a narrow kitchen, a main bedroom that my cousin and Li shared, and a smaller secondary bedroom at the end of the corridor that went to Tian Yu. The first few weeks were the kind of messy freedom you remember forever. Late-night instant noodles, cramming for exams with music too loud, complaining about professors, falling asleep with laptops open, laughing over nothing at 2 a.m. And then the air in the apartment began to turn sour. It started with Tian Yu. At first, it was just jokes. He'd come out of his room in the morning with dark circles under his eyes, complain while he poured coffee. "Why do I feel more tired when I wake up than before I sleep?" he grumbled one morning. "Because you fall asleep scrolling your phone every night," Li said, throwing him a piece of toast. He laughed, but the next day he said the same thing. And the next. Within a week, he looked noticeably different. His cheeks got hollow, his eyes bloodshot. He started skipping morning classes because he hadn't really slept. One afternoon, while they were all eating cheap boxed lunches on the floor, my cousin nudged him. "Are you okay? You look like you're about to sit next to Mazu in the temple." He hesitated, then lowered his voice. "Every night," he said, "I wake up, but I can't move. It's like my body is glued to the bed. I can't even lift a finger." "Sleep paralysis," Leela said immediately. "I saw a thread about that online. Super common." "It's more than that," he insisted. "There's weight right here." He laid his hand flat on his own chest. "Like someone is kneeling on me. Not lying down, kneeling, pressing. I want to breathe, but it's like my lungs have forgotten how." "Did you see anything?" my cousin asked. He shook his head slowly. "No, it's dark, but I know something's there." They laughed it off in that way students do when they're scared but don't want to admit it. "Too much horror anime," Li said. "Too much instant noodle MSG," my cousin added. They told him to sleep earlier, to drink less coffee, to burn a little incense and put a lucky charm by the bed. It kept getting worse. Some mornings, when he managed to drag himself out of the room, his t-shirt would be damp with sweat down the middle, as if he'd been carrying something heavy in his sleep. He got quiet, jumpy, flinched when doors slammed. Then came the night the apartment decided to speak back. It was a Friday night. They had no morning classes the next day, so the 3 of them planned a late-night drive out to the outskirts for skewers and bubble tea. Around 10, they gathered in the main bedroom with the air conditioner on low and the ceiling light turned off, a little desk lamp creating a cosy bubble of yellow on the floor. They sat cross-legged on the thin mattress, playing cards and arguing about who would have to drive first. The rest of the apartment was dark. My cousin remembers clearly. She had checked the front door herself. Double locked. The chain on. Windows latched. TV off. Lights off. No one else in the unit. Cards slapped against the blanket. Someone shook a bag of chips. Outside, scooters buzzed past like hornets. And then, out of nowhere, a bang shook the apartment. Not like someone dropping a pan in the kitchen. It was deeper, heavier. The kind of sound a huge metal door would make if it was slammed by someone using all their strength. The walls shivered. A glass in the corner rattled. All three of them froze. "Did someone?" Lily whispered. "Maybe upstairs," my cousin said automatically. But her heart had already started racing. The sound hadn't come from above. It had felt like it came from just outside their room, or from the living room. They held their breath, listening. Silence. Then, from the dark living room, they heard it. The dry click of buttons, the faint buzz of a cathode screen waking up. The television turned on by itself. Light spilled under the bedroom door, that bluish-white flicker you can recognise even without seeing it. There was a burst of static, then the clear, smooth sound of a recorded voice. Someone was singing. Not a commercial, not random channel noise. It was the chorus of an old song, a woman's voice carrying each note in that slow, slightly sentimental way. The lyrics floated down the corridor to them, distinct, almost too clear. "Do you know that I am waiting for you?" The three of them stared at each other. That single line repeated, the melody drifting under the door as if someone in the living room had picked up the remote, turned on the TV, and chosen that song at that exact moment. They didn't turn the TV off. They didn't grab their coats. No one tried to joke or rationalise it, or test if the door was still locked. My cousin said it felt like something old and patient had just announced, very politely, "I am here." They ran. Door unlocked, chain rattling, shoes half on. They tore down the hallway and into the stairwell, not even waiting for the elevator. The whole way down, my cousin had the image of someone standing in the living room, back to the TV, listening to those lyrics meant for someone else. They didn't stop running until they were far from the building, bent over and coughing on the sidewalk. They spent the night at another friend's place, piled on a narrow bed like children hiding from a storm. Nobody slept much. The next morning, they went back. Not because they'd calmed down, but because fear didn't cancel out rent, and all their stuff was still in that apartment. My cousin said her legs felt like they didn't belong to her as she walked through the courtyard. That's where they ran into the building manager. He was an older man they'd seen a dozen times, always in the same faded polo shirt, sweeping leaves or fixing things. He liked to chat, usually about rent deadlines and recycling schedules. Seeing them with backpacks and suitcases, he frowned. "Going on a trip?" he asked. "No," my cousin said before the other two could answer. We're moving out." "So soon?" He looked surprised. "You just moved in." "Sorry, Uncle," Lily said. "We just don't sleep well there. Too much noise. Weird sounds." At the word weird, something in his expression went blank, the way people close a door inside themselves. He took a slow breath, then said, "Which one did you encounter?" My cousin felt a drop of cold slide down her spine. "What do you mean, which one?" she asked. He glanced at the building, then at them, then lit a cigarette with slightly shaky hands, even though there was a no smoking sign right behind him. "There are 2 in that unit," he said finally. "At least 2 I know of." He pointed upward, toward their floor. "The small bedroom," he said. A young girl hung herself from the ceiling fan. It happened years ago. The landlord didn't want it getting around, so he had the fan removed and put in one of those recessed lights instead. If you look carefully, you can still see where the hook marks were patched. My cousin's stomach lurched. She thought of Tianyu's room, the bare ceiling light, the way he'd described that weight. And the other one? Tianyu asked, voice barely audible. The tenant after her, the manager said. A middle-aged man. He closed all the windows one day, sat in the living room and burned charcoal. By the time anyone noticed the smell, it was too late. He took a drag, exhaled smoke, eyes somewhere far away. The landlord repainted, he added, almost apologetically. Changed the furniture. Notices like that don't say how people died. As long as it's been a while, you're only required to tell potential tenants if they ask very specific questions. Tianyu went very, very still. My cousin turned to look at him. His face had gone almost grey. His hand had drifted up to his chest again, fingers pressing into the fabric of his shirt over his heart. The weight, he whispered. Every night. Right here. The manager's gaze flicked to him. In that second, my cousin knew he understood. In that small room, the manager said quietly, if someone is sleeping flat on the bed, and if the girl is still hanging where she was, he trailed off. He didn't need to finish the sentence. All three of them suddenly saw the same image. A body suspended from the ceiling in the dark, swaying slightly, feet dangling just above the bed, just above the sleeper's chest. The weight that Tianyu had felt night after night hadn't been stress. It had been her. And in the living room, under the patched coat of paint, another presence sat where a man had once filled his lungs with charcoal smoke until he didn't wake up. Close enough to the TV to let it sing. Do you know that I am waiting for you? They moved out that day. They didn't stay to argue about deposits or to look for hook marks on the ceiling. They grabbed what they could and left the rest. For years after, my cousin couldn't sleep in a small room if something was installed directly above the bed. No ceiling lights, no fans. If there was anything overhead, she'd push the mattress somewhere else. Just in case, she would say.
Part 2. The bed by the window.
Life went on. My cousin graduated, worked, moved cities. She avoided old high-rises, stuck to newer buildings with too much glass and not enough personality. She liked places with balconies, sunlight, and neighbours she could hear. By her mid-20s, after years of saving and tiny rentals, she finally did what she'd dreamed of doing since college. With her parents' help, she bought a place of her own. This time, it wasn't an apartment. It was a townhouse on a hillside, overlooking another city I won't name. Let's call it Countryside Home, a place where, at night, the whole valley below turns into a carpet of lights. The first time I saw it, she told me, it felt like the house was waiting for me. Tall windows, a huge balcony, a living room with one entire wall of glass looking out over the night view. It was the kind of place you see in property ads and assume belongs to people who drink wine they can pronounce. But there was one odd thing. In the middle of that beautiful living room, pushed right up against the floor-to-ceiling window, was a single bed. Not a sofa bed, not a lounge. An actual bed. Mattress, frame, pillow. I like to lie here and watch the city lights, the seller said quickly, catching her glance. Feels like sleeping in the sky. His smile was a little too tight, but my cousin told herself she was overthinking it. People put beds in weird places all the time, right? If she bought the house, she'd move it. Easy. Out in the small backyard, near the corner, she noticed another thing. Burnt joss paper. Ashes, half-crumpled pieces of gold and silver foil that hadn't burnt all the way, scattered near a patch of soil. She pointed. Did you have a ceremony here? Ah, that, he said, waving a hand. Probably blown in from the neighbours. Everyone burns paper in this area. It's always flying around. He said it casually, but he didn't go over to kick it away or pick it up. My cousin wanted that house. She wanted it so badly that all the little alarms in her head were pushed aside by mortgage numbers and sunlight angles, and the thought of waking up with that balcony view. She bought it. After she moved in, she did all the normal things. New furniture, new curtains, a plant that died within 2 weeks. When she took possession, the bed in the living room was gone. Only a faint, rectangular mark on the floor showed where it had stood. The house felt airy, open. Nothing like that closed-in student apartment from years before. Still, she decided to invite someone to check. Her friend, Mei Lin, had what the family called a sensitivity. Ever since she was a child, she'd occasionally say things like, "Don't sit there, it's crowded," in an empty room. She was the one relative dragged along to house viewings if they were worried about history. "The energy feels pretty clean," Mei Ling said when she first walked in, turning slowly in the center of the living room. "Nothing like your old student place, don't worry." They laughed, relaxed. "Watch this," Mei Ling added, rolling up her sleeve. "If there's something nearby, my arm hair will stand up. Instant indicator." She held her arm out casually, skin smooth and flat. "The moment I say it," she joked, "they always..." She didn't finish the sentence. Goosebumps erupted across her forearm in a wave. Every tiny hair stood up straight. The skin actually looked like it puckered inward, as if the air had suddenly turned freezing cold on that one patch of flesh. Her face drained of colour. "It's here," she whispered. "Right now." My cousin's smile died. "Where?" she asked, voice coming out smaller than she meant it to. Mei Ling pointed slowly, her hand trembling just a little. "Right there," she said. Her finger aimed at the empty space by the floor-to-ceiling window. Exactly where the bed had been. My cousin's first instinct was denial. "There's nothing there," she said. "It's just empty space." Mei Ling didn't answer. She was staring at that patch of floor with an expression that mixed pity and sorrow. Without quite meaning to, my cousin reached for her phone. She called the previous owner. "Can you come over?" she asked, trying to keep her voice neutral. "There are some things about the house I'd like to ask you. It's easier to show you in person." When he arrived, he looked more tired than she remembered. His hair had greyer. His shoulders slumped a little. He sat on one of her new chairs, eyes flicking around as if checking what had changed. "We're very happy with the house," my cousin began, "because that's what you say. It's beautiful, but I noticed the bed you had here before, and some joss paper outside." "It's not a murder house," he blurted, too fast. The room went very quiet. "I mean," he stammered, "there were never any accidents. Nothing like that. We lived here for years." His gaze kept darting toward the window, then away. Mei Ling stood a little to the side, watching him. Her arm still bore faint goosebumps. "There's a child here," she said softly. "A little girl. She's been here a long time." The owner's hands clenched on his knees. "She's weak," Mei Ling continued, eyes fixed on that empty space by the window. "Very, very tired. Like she's been sick for a long time. But she's not angry, she's waiting." Something in the man seemed to cave in. He sank back into the chair, shoulders shaking slightly. "It's not a ghost story," he said, as if trying to convince himself. "It's medical, science, but..." He took a breath. Years ago, he and his wife had struggled to have children. They tried for a long time. Finally, they turned to IVF. It worked. They were overjoyed. Then the doctor told them it was twins. "We cried in the parking lot," he said, voice cracking. "We were that happy." Then, early on, one of the twins vanished in the womb. The doctors called it a vanishing twin. It happens, they said. The surviving fetus goes on. They tried to be grateful for the one remaining baby. Then came more tests. The remaining fetus, a girl, had developed a severe genetic deformity. The prognosis was grim. If she survived to birth at all, she would live a short, painful life, attached to machines, in and out of hospitals. They agonized, prayed, fought with each other and with themselves. At 6 months, they made the decision. They would terminate the pregnancy. We told ourselves it was mercy, he said, that we were sparing her suffering, but the morning of the procedure, his wife had a dream. She was standing in a crowd of people, like a festival. The crowd turned to her, and as one, asked, "Do you know what day it is today? Do you know Madzu's birthday?" Madzu, the sea goddess. His wife woke up with her heart pounding. She looked at the calendar. It was, in fact, Madzu's birthday. In traditional stories, Madzu is a protector, especially of those in danger at sea, those who might not make it safely to shore. They took it as a sign, Mei Ling murmured. At the hospital, the man continued, before they put her under, my wife talked to the baby. She told her, "You go first. Go somewhere you can be healthy. When you're well, come back to us, okay?" His voice cracked on the last words. They had the procedure. Life moved on, at least on the surface. They went back to work. They tried again for children. It didn't work. They got older. They moved into this house on the hillside. My wife couldn't sleep at first, he said. She kept saying the apartment in town felt crowded. So we came here. Fresh air, big window, lots of light. His eyes went to the patch of floor by the glass. And then she started putting a bed there, he whispered. Right by the window. She said she liked lying there, imagining watching our daughter fall asleep with the night view. He rubbed his face. She burned paper outside on certain days, he added. Just in case. Not to call anything, just to let her know we hadn't forgotten. Mei Ling's gaze didn't move from the spot by the window. She never left, Mei Ling said quietly. The man flinched. She thinks, Mei Ling continued, her eyes a little unfocused, that she was sent away because she was sick. So she stayed. Here, in this house, in that warm, sunlit patch by the window, trying to get better. Like a child in a sick room who thinks that if she rests properly, takes her medicine, behaves, her mother will finally come back to get her. The room felt like it had shrunk. She's been resting there for years, Mei Ling said, watching the lights, waiting for a body that will never grow. For parents who have moved to another place, another life. Tears were running down the man's face now. He didn't bother to wipe them. We told her to come back when she was healthy, he whispered. How is she supposed to know what that means? No one said anything for a long time. They didn't do an exorcism. There was no shouting, no command for her to leave. Mei Ling refused. She's not malicious, she said. This isn't a curse, it's grief that got stuck. They burned incense. They opened the windows. They spoke aloud, my cousin Mei Ling and the previous owner, telling the little girl that she wasn't unwanted, that being sick was never her fault, that she didn't have to keep waiting here like a patient who missed her discharge date. I don't know if she understood, my cousin told me, but the air felt softer afterward, like someone who had been sitting on the edge of the bed finally lay down and rested. The house, Mei Ling said, was clean of malice. No one here wanted revenge. No one was trying to hurt anyone. But the place was heavy, with a kind of sorrow you can't scrub off with salt or sage or bright paint. My cousin still lives there. She keeps that patch by the window clear. No bed. No furniture. Just sunlight and a small potted plant that somehow never dies, no matter how busy she gets. Sometimes at night, she admitted, when the city lights are on and the room is quiet, I feel like I'm sharing the view with someone small and patient. She doesn't talk to it. She doesn't ask questions. She just looks out at the lights and, once in a while, thinks of a little girl who never made it to her own birthday, lying in that invisible sick room, waiting to get better, for a mother who never stopped loving her, but didn't know she'd stayed. When she finished telling me both of these stories, she laughed a little. Student apartment with 2 suicides, she said. Hillside house with a daughter who never arrived. Apparently, I'm very good at moving into places where someone is still waiting for something. She said it lightly, but her fingers traced her mug in small, anxious circles. Some hauntings are all teeth and claws and midnight banging. Others are just people who never got to finish what they started. And sometimes, the scariest thing isn't that there's something in your house. It's realizing that while you're rushing through your life, exams, moves, jobs, mortgages, someone in the same space is still stuck on one question, whispered over and over in the dark. Do you know that I am waiting for you?